Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Yarn Ambassador podcast. Can you believe it? 10 episodes. If you are a new viewer and you've just stumbled across this, very much welcome. This is a podcast that aims to celebrate and showcase independent yarn dyers from around the UK, people doing something a little bit different, people who I've come across and people who you might not have heard about. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for coming back and let's get going. So this month has been a very busy month. I always say that. It's always a busy month. When is it not a busy month? But I have been focusing on the work of a lovely lady called Gemma who goes by the name of Snuggly Stars as a yarn dyer. Now, I met Gemma first at Woolwich Junction 13 and scooped up some of her yarns there and have been working on them ever since. Last week, I was lucky enough to catch up with her at Yarningham, which is only about an hour away from where I live. So I scooted up there to ask her some questions and to find out a little bit more about what she does. So without further ado, I will insert that video in here now so you can hear a little bit from Gemma, from the horse's mouth, as it were, about her yarns. And then I'll show you what I've been busy doing. See you in a minute. Hello, and thank you for joining me. We are at Yarningham, and I'm speaking to Gemma of Snuggly Stars Yarn. And Gemma is the focus of this month's Yarn Ambassador podcast. So, hello, Gemma. Thank you for joining us. And so, tell us a little bit about your yarns. How long have you been a dyer?
It'll be 14 months.
14
officially
months.
since I opened the Etsy shop. So maybe 12 months before I had a play with food colouring and that sort of thing, just for personal use. And then it was just before Christmas time, and I watched my first podcast about knitting and stuff. And then it was Katie of Inside Number 23, and then she was talking about hand-dyed yarn. I was like, what? And then she was talking about it and said things, or would say how much it was, and I'd look into it and go, oh, because obviously it's quite expensive when you're only used to commercial stuff in a regular yarn shop. And I thought, I could do that. I'm sure I could do that, even if it's just for me to have a go. So I dabbled and played with my stuff. And then I visited Woolwich Junction 13, so not this year, last year. I was so inspired. I went with my daughter, Isabella, we just walked around and was so inspired. On the Monday I set up the Etsy shop. Just
wow, straight away.
Rather than like going, ooh, and having this little pile of stuff that I'd made. I thought other people might want it.
So is that your full-time role, or are you doing it with another job at the same time?
A lot of hats. I have 3 kids, so that's the main thing.
That is the main job,
you know, do school runs and that. I'm also a face painter and glitter artist.
Oh,
yes,
fun. So do you get to go to all the festivals?
I have done a big festival. Yeah, mostly it's like kids' parties, weddings, corporate events, store open days, stuff like that. As well. So that's pretty much every weekend.
Wow! And then these as well. Have you done quite a few?
This is my 4th show.
4th show. So you were, because I met you at Woolwich Junction
13. Yeah.
13. Is it? I can't remember.
13. I live at 13.
Thank
yes,
you.
It is that one. So yeah, I did. The first show was Nottingham Yarn Expo. Last year. Then I did Winter Woolies, which is just a little one-day one. And then I did Woolwich Junction 13, and then this one. And then I'm going to do Nottingham Yarn Expo again this year. I've got Yarndale in the pipeline.
Fun. I love Yarndale's great.
I visited as just a normal person last year, and it was like a crush. It was mad. So I'm a bit like, ooh, about doing that.
How long does it take you to get ready for one of these shows? Because when I watch all the podcasts and like Amy Florence of Stranded and stuff, she's like prepping for these things way in advance.
God bless her, she does like 1,000 skeins. I could only dream of that much black yarn to play with. So, I don't know, over the course of just weeks and weeks, I suppose, of just doing a bit here, doing a bit there, and then you go, oh, now I need to reskein all that, or oh, now I need to label everything. So
yeah, a lot of work goes into it.
But yeah, so you can't go a few days before, oh, I'll do a yarn show, and then that would be
Insane. Yeah, good. So you got started. So you're a kitchen dyer.
Yeah,
you take over your kitchen.
Partner
Excellent.
loves it because no matter what you do, it will splatter.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Some turquoise dye somewhere on something.
Turquoise, magenta. Yeah, good. It's rainbow kitchen. It's like, I do clean it. I don't like food prep at the same time. I cook a curry whilst doing the. No, it would be bad all around.
So do you dye every day, or is it?
I wouldn't say religiously every day. More because I don't have the blank wall to do that. I run out and go, I know what. Because I find when I've done a lot for a show and then I've dyed it all, and then I'll get something in my head to go, I would have made. I can't.
And what bases do you use? So I've been working a lot on your. Is it Darling DK?
Yes.
Yeah, which is lovely. I want to talk to you about that in a minute. What are the bases? Do you cover all bases?
Yeah, I did go a bit mad trying, like buying a pack of all sorts to see what I liked as well as what might go down well. The main standard is the fabulous sock base, so 75-25 merino, superwash merino nylon. I don't do non-superwash.
Okay.
I don't trust myself to not kill it.
Right. Yeah, it's tricky.
I'll get there, but for now. And I like how the superwash like grabs the colour as well, especially if you're doing speckles and stuff. It'll just suck onto it.
Yeah, it's very vibrant.
So for fingering or 4-ply, so the fabulous sock base. There's a high twist version which is 80% superwash merino, 20%, so 80-20. I have done ones with the Donegal nepping.
Oh yes,
they're cool for like shawls and scarves.
And then you had an Aran with the Donegal.
Yes, I've got that. I've got some of that up there as well. So I've dabbled with those. The DK weight, I just have. The supplier calls it Crazy 8, but it.
Right, so it's an 8-ply, which I hadn't seen before, and maybe I've just been not looking hard enough. But it's amazing.
It's nice and round, isn't it?
It's really kind of lofty as well, because I think it's obviously got those 8-ply in it, and I had to seriously unwind it to double check what it was.
To see what it is, but it's just got that squidge, and in a shawl like your shawl, it's so soft and squidgy.
Yeah.
So I've just stuck with that for now. For that. I might get a sparkle, I might not. I do have sparkle in 4-ply. Yeah. I might get sparkle for DK.
And you've got Aran. Have you got Aran?
Yeah, I've got Aran, which I've got the Blue Face Leicester now. And I've got the 100% superwash merino, and I've got a bit with the Donegal nepping. Yeah. I might get more of that closer to Christmas because, funny enough, at this time of year, people don't go, let's get Aran weight.
Do you know what? I don't know what's happened. We've had the hottest summer, and I've been knitting with heavier weights, with your Aran and with the DK. And I'm like, this should be the time I'm knitting with fingering weight. But I'm like, no, I'm going to do a worsted weight sweater, which is...
I did think to myself, 4-ply, good to wear. By the time I finished it, I want the Aran one.
Yeah, so that's what I'm working on.
You are going. When it gets cold, I'm sorted.
Yeah, I'm pretending that I'm doing it with a lot of planning in place, but that wouldn't quite be it. And you've got some really vibrant colours. Some of the stuff that I've been knitting with has just been really zingy. How do you get your ideas for it? Where does it come from? I love some of the names of them, especially Toasted Marshmallow, because that I get sucked in by names. And
that one, my partner is a scout leader.
Yeah.
And so the kids have been going off to camp, and then he'll send me a picture of my 3-year-old toasting a marshmallow over a tiny fire that he's made himself. Oh. I'm like, he will set the house on fire. Don't teach him these things. Don't teach you kids to make fires. But stuff like that looks like that. Yeah. As it's either when I'm making it, I don't usually have a name and then try and make something to look like it. It could be in the pot as I'm doing it. Oh, such and such.
And do you have different days where you're like, I'm having a blue day, or I'm all about the neons?
It's today. Sort of as I'm going along and look at the end and go, that was a neon there. Yeah. Oh, blue today. Oh, pink. Yes, it was pink. And I don't wear loads of pink. I don't know why, but loads of it. It goes.
You've got some very zingy stuff, which is beautiful. And do you have any kind of other dyers who have inspired you, or you kind of think, they've got it nailed?
I think it's more just from shows, and I don't always remember people's names, which is bad. And like from online, like podcasts, you've got like Amy of Stranded, works and stuff like that, and you're that's nice. But I try really hard. I don't want to copy someone. I don't. Well,
no, it's very individual. The stuff you have.
It is all what comes out of my head at the time. Yeah. It's a weird place to be in my brain.
Do you have an arty background, or is this something you've just always been quite creative and?
Not really. And the weird thing is, people a couple of years ago they said, she's quite creative. I go, no, and I just do a bit of crochet. But actually, when you think I do all this, all the pretty colours, face painting and the glitter art, so that's all pretty colours and sparkles.
It's all pointing.
Okay, actually,
it's all pointing.
All right then, I
towards
quite like pretty
creative.
colours. Like with that, if you're doing a butterflies and things, watercolour art, and that can be quite overlapping the colours.
Yeah.
Like with this, overlapping the colours and see what you're going to get. Yeah. So I'll just go, oh, I'll try that. And the ones that I like, I'll write down at the time so I can try and do it again.
Do you have a lot of one-of-a-kind colourways where you've just...
Sometimes, and it's quite interesting, the ones that you go, oh, that didn't turn out. Can be the ones people gravitate to the most. It's really weird.
And then you haven't written it down.
No, but usually I do try and write each bit by bit, and then I can give it a bash. Yeah. But I'm not a factory. I would, if someone said I want a sweater's quantity, that's fine, but I can dye it all in one go.
Yeah.
But I don't think...
Well, you don't want to get bored either.
1 week I do it, and I do it 2 weeks later, following the same recipe. It's hand-dyed. It will turn out slightly different. Yeah. I'm not a machine.
No, and all the better for it, I say, because they are beautifully, and that's why people love hand-dyed yarns, isn't it? Because they are so individual, and each piece is unique.
Because when I walk around the shows, I'm like, ooh, 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 ooh. So, yeah, and it is good. Like, yesterday was too busy to escape. I had my 3-year-old running around, so my partner was chasing him. But today, it's just me and my partner. So I'm like, you watch the stand, I'm going to go shopping.
Excellent. And
mooching,
obviously. Just browsing, having a
quick
quick
And then come back going, oh.
I've got bags worth. And so you were a crocheter to start with, and you were just telling me that your granny taught you to knit.
Yes.
With Portuguese tension.
Yes, Portuguese sitting around the neck, so it's not just a fashion accessory. I do knit this way, and it tensions. I get an even tension. So even when I first started, you wouldn't think I'd just started. And as much as it's so funny, I watch videos and I go, oh, I don't want to do that pattern because there's purling in it. Yeah. Well, Portuguese style, I purl everything where possible.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So socks, I'd purl all the way around.
So hang on, you're doing stocking stitch, but you're purling. Yeah. Oh my goodness, you're a total weirdo.
Thank you. It's the nicest thing I've heard all day. No, but it is because it's just a flick. It is literally just a flick of the thumb. I don't say that. I don't know how to purl the other way. So I just hear that it's a pain. I don't actually know how to do that.
Oh no, but that's fabulous.
So I choose. So I find to convert a lot of patterns to, if it was garter or something, because it's a lot of knit, I would just purl everything.
Oh, that is fascinating.
So, and again, I taught her to crochet, so between us,
That's very nice. That's like a kind of back and forth. Yeah. And who are your, do you have any favourite designers? Like, you're knitting socks at the moment.
Yes.
But I noticed you've got lovely little kind of baby garments in a mixture of crochet and knitting.
Yes. The crochet tends to be quite a lot made up. The little baby sweaters are just like a free pattern off Ravelry. If it's easy, I can do it. Yeah. I haven't tackled like fancy lace or big cables and stuff. But my favourite designers, it would be a toss-up between Hogan Locatelli and Andrea Mowry.
How did you finished your So Faded?
Yes.
Have you got it?
I do. I've got the two. So that's my one.
Oh my goodness! And that's the
toasted marshmallow, rhubarb crumble,
which is my fave.
Yeah, robin's egg, jelly bean, and then the midnight marine.
Beautiful.
The pattern says to do about 3 changes or 5, but I get a bit bored and go, oh, I'll try that colour.
Why not? Yeah, bring them all in.
And then
is
I've got
your
so much
daughter?
left over. Yeah, she's 6. I haven't done the neckline on that, but no one needs to know. I've just told
it's
you.
a design feature. I don't know what you're talking about.
And then just picked most of what I've got left, basically.
That's
she
brilliant.
Wanted the same. I said, do you want long sleeves? I will do sleeves. No, I want it the same as yours. Okay.
Well, that's beautiful. That's and yes, the toasted marshmallow and your rhubarb crumble make a perfect partnership. Yeah, really lovely.
And I've never finished adult garment for myself before until this. I know it's not got sleeves, but
It's still a garment.
So that was all pearled everything.
Really? Oh wow. Okay. And so what's next? What's next?
I have got another style like that called the boathouse on the go, but that's just another.
A designer.
Yeah. If you check out my Instagram, I have tagged her on it. It's fine. But that's just another top-down raglan with a slightly different style, and then again it will be fading into I'll just fold all the colours and play.
Brilliant. Have a real, oh, fabulous. And so
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, thank you.
So we need to wrap this up because we're nearly coming to the start of Yarningham, and there would just be floods of people coming in. So what is next for you? There are more yarn shows. You're obviously on Etsy. Have you got any kind of things, changes, new colourways you're thinking of?
I have noticed that with everything being so bright and bold, people go, if you've got anything to go with it, you know, like a semi-solid to go with it. Have you probably noticed the most semi-solid thing I've got is like that?
A bright neon orange.
So, I mean, it's not exactly, so that would be a goal to try. I think I have to be a bit more scientific with that and actually weigh stuff.
Yeah,
you know, to get a bit more of the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do it because I've got the minis, but just doing it on a larger scale.
Yeah.
So keep learning with techniques and stuff, and more shows, and get more stuff actually in the shop rather than in my house.
And do you do a regular update, or is it just as you've got it goes into the shop?
Yeah, as and when.
Okay.
All the, because I'm a higher stockist, so the needles and hooks and bits and bobs like that, they're always in the shop.
Yeah,
that's fine. And then I'll put the wool in as and when I've.
And you've got beautiful other trinkets, like the badge you're wearing, which is so cool. Cat and a sweater. Amazing. And then you also do beautiful little buttons. Can I grab a look at the little buttons? There were the little horsey ones. Are those llamas?
No, they're birdies. I know that.
Oh yeah, they are birdies.
But there are, like,
I will show you the other ones that I've got. They're brilliant stuff. So they are all available in your Etsy shop as well.
And then to make more samples, I have found, particularly yesterday, to go, look, this one, that's what it knits up like.
That is so helpful.
And crochet, because they do turn out differently, so that's...
Especially with very strong variegated yarns, I think it is, as a customer, it's super helpful to see how it knits up, how the colour distributes. So, yeah, brilliant. So a busy summer.
Yeah, keep busy.
All right. Well, listen, thank you very much. Good luck with the second day of yarning, and keep an eye on Gemma and what she does next.
Yeah.
So it's well worth checking out Gemma at Nottingham Yarn Festival, which I believe is in November, the 10th to the 11th. And before that, she's going to be at Yarndale in Skipton, and I think that's the 29th and the 30th of September. If you've not been to a yarn festival, or there's not one near you, it's worthwhile making the effort. They are a great place to search out new talent and come across people who you might not have heard of or seen before, and get to feel the yarns up close. There are some really hidden gems on Etsy, and it's when they come out and you can find them at yarn festivals that it makes all the difference. And I think having that personal connection and getting to meet the person behind the dyes is really important. So, what have I been doing? You might have noticed in the video that I had taken up some of the samples that I had knitted to show to Gemma, and bless her, it was a very hot day, and I realised, having rewatched that video, that she had a very heavy shawl I'd knitted on her lap for the entire time through that interview. So thank you, Gemma, for sweating it out for me there. So let me first talk about the first thing I made with Gemma's yarns. So this was in her Snuggly DK base. This is what she calls her industry base, and this is on her Darling DK that we spoke about. So this is 8-ply and it's 100% superwash merino, and you can see that it's this beautiful kind of grey, blue flashes of turquoise, a little bit of burnt orange in there as well. And it's a really kind of quite a strong variation, and she had a sample of this knitted up when I was there. And I love it when dyers have samples knitted up, because with something as variegated as this, it's really helpful to know what that knits up as. And she had knitted a small baby jacket. I decided to knit a hat, because even though we are having the driest, hottest summer on record, I've been going heavy. But it's good to be prepared. Winter will come. I mean, it's not like it's not just round the corner. So this is the industry on the Darling DK up close. And you can see it's got those really beautiful flecks. Some blacks in there, some kind of charcoals. So I just loved the effect of this and thought it worked really well. Would probably make a lovely jumper. Can you imagine that? And we kind of spoke about it in the interview, but the 8 ply that Gemma uses is really, really snuggly. It's very, very squidgy, and I don't know if you can see that, but if I unroll that, you can see it's made up of a 4 ply, but each of those 4 plies is made up of a 2 ply. It's mind-boggling. But it does make for a very squishy and a very drapey finish on your knits. So that's going to be, and I've made this one, I made up this pattern. I didn't make it up, I just borrowed the pattern from several different places. But I just started with a 2x2 rib, then knitted until in the round until it was about 8 inches, because that gives you quite a nice slouchy hat if you're one of those cool slouchy hat wearers, or you can always fold the brim back for like double warmth and you get more of what I would call like a fisherman's cap there. So that's quite a good pattern. I have actually sewn in the ends, just haven't cut them off. It's a job to do. So that was a really lovely fun project to start with, and a really good travel project. So squishy, very squishy. I think if there was one word to describe Gemma's yarns, it would be really squishy and squidgy. They are super soft. You could just plunge your face into them. The next thing I knitted was because, as you will have heard, or you might not know from previous episodes, but I am going to the Knit Tea Retreat in Cardiff, which is going to be hosted by Jenny of All About Yarn and Zoe of Pins and Needles, both of whom have podcasts, and the Knit Tea Retreat is the first of their retreats that they're hosting, and they're doing it really nicely because they've got some fabulous teachers, and to get you involved with the teachers and what's going on, they're hosting throughout the year in the run-up to the retreat knit-alongs. So the current knit-along at the moment is focused on the work of designer Renee Callahan, who I believe is East London Knits. And so I was looking for a pattern that I could use with some of Gemma's yarns and also enter into that knit-along as well. And I found the most delightful pattern by Renee Callahan, which is called the Swalen Mitts. It's not spelt like that, but that's how it's pronounced. I believe it's an Irish word, and it means little wolves. But it's got this beautiful, it's got twisted rib detail, but then this kind of interesting wrapped style knits. I hope you can see what that's doing. It's like a diamond shape, but really, really clever. And I had started this pattern in another yarn, actually, something that was more variegated and looked a bit like that. And the strength of the pattern was getting lost. And I have, when I was at Wool at Junction 13, the yarn I picked up from Gemma, this was in her discount bin. Now, I have a strong belief that independent yarn dyers don't really need to have a discount bin. Everything is a kind of a one-off. And I believe that you should, everything's worth it. Just because it's the last of a colourway or it's the last of a yarn base, it's still valuable and it's still worth the price you're charging. So that is my, it's my shout out to designers. Anyway, I picked up this, so it was in the discount bin because I understand this, it is a discontinued yarn base. She's not going to use that anymore, and it's called Aubergine Dream, but it's a very beautiful tonal purple. And I think if I hold that up, you can see that the reflex of it, it's kind of, it's really rich, and it really helps that pattern to stand out and kind of lifts it. So that was just perfect. This is a DK weight pattern as well. Now I have got whopping hands. So I have to kind of do a bit of squidging to make sure it fits on. But I think that's going to be lovely. This base that is discontinued has got alpaca in it and silk. So it's a pretty special and very, very soft. It's got a kind of a gorgeous halo going around it. I don't know if you can see that. So that was a delightful colourway and a delightful kind of partnership of pattern and yarn. The pattern itself is more fiddly than I would normally do, and I started this pattern about 3 or 4 times over. I just think I wasn't concentrating It's really not that difficult. But you knit the thumbs first, and I just didn't read the instructions. So I then had to like fudge it all the way down, which is ridiculous. I could have just started again. I just didn't want to have to knit those tiny thumbs again on double pointed needles. But really chuffed with those, and I will be wearing those in October when I go to the Knit Tea retreat, because it'll be October and hopefully it'll be cold enough to wear these. I am really missing wearing jumpers, by the way. It is just too hot. The next thing I knitted with Gemma's lovely yarns was an Aran weight I had picked up at Woolwich Junction 13. I had been speaking with Zoe, and I knew I wanted to make her Jackson's Bay cowl. That's Zoe Carter from Pins and Needles. She's got a podcast and she's started designing her own patterns. And in my mind, I had it in my head that it was a DK weight pattern. And I went to buy it, and lo and behold, it was an Aran. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to find an Aran for it. And I picked up an Aran, so it was just basically an excuse to get another skein of yarn because I didn't really have any suitable Aran in my stash. So whilst speaking with Gemma at Woolwich Junction 13, I noticed she had a really nice Aran base. Now this is called Tweedy Errand. It's 85% superwash merino and 15% Donegal nep. And this is actually a one-of-a-kind colourway. I've got very little of it left. I was playing yarn chicken towards the end. But it's a beautiful mix of kind of almost navy, light blues. Just reminds me of being at the beach. And I thought when Jenny designs her patterns, she's very much influenced and inspired by where she lives, and Jackson's Bay is one of the places near where she lives, and the textured pattern was inspired by the cliffs and the kind of different strata in the rocks, and I thought that this colourway matched with it really, really nicely. It kind of reminds me of where I'm from in the Lake District, and those grey heavy clouds and the deep slate grey of the lakes up there as well. So that's kind of where I made that connection. It's a brilliant pattern to make. I made the larger size, and you set it off with these 4 buttons, so you can wear it. It's knit in the round up until a certain point, and then you go backwards and forwards. So you can wear it kind of loosely open. I'm not going to put it on because it is roasting. I did model it for Jenny when I got to Yarningham, but I'm not putting it on today. It's just far too hot. But what a lovely yarn. Really, really complements the textural, the little neps, which are kind of brown flecks that go through, really lift it. So I'm really chuffed with that knit together. I really, really like it. That was actually a one-of-a-kind colourway, but as you heard Gemma saying, you know, it's often sometimes the one-of-a-kind colourways that she finds the most popular. So I hope she still does have the recipe for that one. That one's called Naughty Navy. Yes, Naughty Navy, and it's one of a kind. But you never know, if you're really keen, she might be able to recreate it. We can only ask nicely and see what happens. So I've been doing these single skein projects, and I really like doing those when I'm trying to showcase designers, because you get to see much more variety of their bases, of their colorways, rather than doing one big project. But there has been a project that has been in my sights for a really long time, and that is the Jodie Shawl by Hohi Locatelli that she made for Jodie of the Grocery Girls. Now, Jodie, if you watch it, you will know she prefers knitting with DK or worsted because things knit up faster, and I'm kind of in that place at the moment too. So this is the pattern printed off. So you can see it's this big slouchy shawl, and it's knit in DK weight, 3 skeins of DK weight. So I thought, well, this would be a lovely one to use to try and showcase the work of an independent yarn dyer. And so I used 3 of Gemma's. I started off, and these are all on her Darling DK base. This was the toasted marshmallow that we were talking about, and that Gemma used in her own So Faded jumper, actually. And it's a really rich kind of cream and browns, toasty browns. It's like a toasted marshmallow. And then I went a little bit out of my comfort zone. I am not a bright, sharp, bright neon kind of person. But there was something about this yarn, which is Rhubarb Crumble, that really pulled me in. So it's delicate. They've got some really delicate pinks in, almost like a blush pink, like a rosé, and then some very subtle greens. And then every so often you get this bright, bright flash of neon pink. Neons are not my wheelhouse at all. They are way out of it. And then I went even a bit more bonkers. And this one I was totally sucked in by the name. This one is called Golden Fairy Garden, right? And it is this warm, yellowy base, almost with kind of glows of orange and pink and purples. And it's quite floral, which again is not me, but then there are some quite like strident yellows in there as well. Oh, I'm veering off course. Back in. There we go. So this isn't showing up terribly well. The colour's slightly blowing out. I don't know if there's any better way to do that, but it's actually a very warm, that's a really poor representation of it. Ignore that. Anyway, I will show you the shawl that I made with it, which I am absolutely in love with, because by combining these 3 colours, it's made something that's actually quite subtle. It's still variegated, you still get these pops of colour in it, but it is much more. And my housemate, who is not a knitter, he's not even that interested in yarn, kind of said, oh, it's really clever, you've made it look like flowers, but it's not really flowers, and it kind of is, and that's why I really love finishing it off with that Golden Fairy Garden, because that's what it feels like. And the toasted marshmallow and the Rhubarb Crumble blend really, really well into each other. It's a very, very subtle melting of the colours, and likewise from the Rhubarb Crumble into the Golden Fairy Garden. So I'm really chuffed with that. It's still kind of colours. I'm going to have to be brave about wearing it because it's got a yellow in it. I mean, I never wear yellow. What's going on? But I really like it. So I'm super chuffed with that. And that's the lovely thing about doing anything that has some kind of fade or blend or even contrast, is if you use the colours from one designer, then you've got a much better chance of them speaking to each other, the different yarns working together, either in a kind of an harmony or having a really strong contrast. So I would recommend, if you do have a project like this, if you can kind of mix them together from the work of one designer, that does work. Now, I loved the pattern. It was very easy to follow. It's got a little bit of lace work at the bottom, which just makes it a bit more delicate. It knit up super fast. I was done with this within a week. And if I'd have actually spent a lot of time on it, I would have been done sooner. So a brilliant knit. But is it just me? Right, when you do crescent shaped shawls, there's always this kind of like hump along the top bit, which kind of makes me feel a bit like it's got a hunchback. And I find it a bit weird. Has anybody got, and I've tried to block it out so that you get like a proper, you know, straight line across the top, but it's still got that little hump. And it's annoying me. But I'm going to have to get over that. But if anybody's got any clues or explanation for why there is a weird hump at the top of crescent-shaped shawls, I'd be delighted to know. So this was the kind of the magnum opus, and if you were at Yarningham, you might have seen it. I left it with a Gemma so she could display how all three of those colours knit up. So it was an absolute joy to knit with Gemma's yarns, and I'm so pleased to have come across her and discovered her, and for her yarns to have kind of encouraged me out of my comfort zone into some of those much zingier poppy colours that I wouldn't normally venture into. So thank you, Gemma, and I'm really looking forward to wearing that. I'm just really looking forward to the winter. But not only that, you'll have seen in the interview that Gemma is a stockist for higher knitting needles, so you can find all of those on her Etsy shop. But the other lovely thing she does are these badges. How cute are these? So there's this one, this little lass here. It's a little kitten with big eyes, and she's got a little purse on. And then this is my favourite. This is a little chap, and I think this is what Gemma was wearing in the video. It's a cat with a sweater on. Why would you not love that? So Gemma has very kindly sent these, and I'm going to put one of them in a giveaway to one of you lucky viewers as well. I'll tell you about that in a minute. The other amazing thing Gemma does are these badges. They're really fun. So you get them in these beautiful bright pink things, and I think there are 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. And they're these they're wooden, but they're these painted little, it's a little horse. How amazing is that? It's like a little, and then, so then I got very excited when I was seeing her in Yarningham. And look, you can get these kind of little Day of the Dead ones. How cool is that? So I got a little one of those. And for you, dear viewers, I am adding to that giveaway a little bag of these ones with little rabbits on them. Look at these little chaps. These are like flowery little rabbits. Can you see them? Amazing. So in order to win a little bag of these lovely rabbit buttons along with the little cat badge, I'd like you to head on over to the Ravelry group page, which is called Yarn Ambassador Pod Blog. You can join that. There's not a lot of activity on there at the moment, but I thought this was the best place to run the competition. I'd like you to bob on over to Gemma's Etsy page, have a look through and tell me which of her colourways speaks to you the most, which one it is that you would treat yourself to if you did like it. And so I will pull randomly from that in about a month's time. So that will be around mid-August, and I'll probably and I'll announce that in the thread, and I'll announce it in Ravelry, on Instagram as well. So really worthwhile visiting Gemma's shop. It's full of fun things, not just the yarn, but she's got a great eye. And you know, obviously all yarn dyers are very unique. They've got their own style, but there's something about the really strong, bold colours that Gemma uses that kind of reminds me of hedgehog fibres. They're really zingy. They're kind of quite poppy. They'd work really well in a Stephen West pattern. So if that's your kind of thing, then definitely check it out. There was another thing I was going to mention about that. Gone. It's just gone. I can't remember. Oh well, maybe it'll come back as I'm chatting about other stuff. So check out Gemma, Snuggly Stars Yarn. What a love, and she's a total love as well. She's really, really nice, and she's been so friendly and so welcoming and so accommodating in terms of like getting her to be interviewed and stuff. So thank you very much, Gemma. I've also been really busy doing kind of other projects that aren't Snuggly Stars Yarn, and I'm introducing a section which I'm going to call Souvenir Knit. wonder if I can get like a thing for that. Souvenir Knits. So I do an awful lot of travel for my work, and which I'm super grateful for. It's a very lucky and privileged position to be in. And when I have the opportunity, I will dive off to the nearest yarn shop and try and pick up something local, because I do think that if you're a knitter, yarn makes the best souvenirs. You're knitting something, it reminds you of the trip, it's something you wouldn't necessarily be able to get at home, it's a really special piece. So these won't necessarily be recent trips I've been on, they're trips I've been on that I've bought something, put it in the stash, and I'm now pulling it out to work with. So first up is I went to Iceland about 2 years ago, and everything in Iceland is really expensive. Costs a lot to have a pint, it costs a lot to eat. It's a mind-blowingly beautiful country, and of course they have some fabulous knitwear, which is what was foremost in my mind when visiting the country. And because of their history and because of their past, they've got really purebred sheep. It's kind of, they haven't been crossbred, so they're kind of the descendants of the Vikings, right? Because it's an island, the Vikings brought over these sheep, and they've pretty much kind of not had any other outside influence in these sheep since then. If this is wrong, please do let me know, but I'm pretty certain this is right. So one of the more traditional jumpers you see when you think of Iceland with the big heavy yoke are knitted in what's called slouchy yarn. And slouchy yarn is, it's not ply, it's a single ply, it's kind of quite loosely twisted, and it's quite rustic, I would say. I would say if you were knitting for somebody who gets a bit funny about wool and can't have scratchy things on them, I would not recommend slouchy. But if you're the kind of person who is not at all sensitive to that, or you're happy to wear something long sleeved underneath, then slouchy is amazingly warm. There is one company which is called Istex, and they do one which is like a DK-ish weight, and that's called Let slouchy, and that's kind of knitted up with a 4.4 to 4.5 millimeter needle. And then there is something which is called Alafos slouchy, which is much thicker, and that knits up with like a 5.5 to 6.5 needle. So I've had quite a lot of this in my stash for a long time. When I went over there, I basically went with an empty suitcase and filled in the yarn, because the yarn is the most affordable thing there, right? You get about 100 grams for something like £2.50. It might have changed a bit, but compared to the price of beer and eating out, the yarn was really reasonable. So I went a bit bonkers in the shop, and so I did a lot of searching on Ravelry for patterns that used Alafos slouchy, the thicker yarn, and there are some very traditional ones. There are whole, they call them lopapezas, and those are the big yoked jumpers, and you can get whole books on patterns of those, but none of them were quite speaking to me. I wanted something which had a slightly more kind of modern feel, and I came across a pattern called Sing Winter by Alicia Plummer, and I've done quite a few of her patterns before in the past, and I quite like her style. And she had used Alafos slouchy, and so I thought, right, this is it. So in the middle of the biggest heat wave England and Britain have been experiencing, I decided to knit with Alafos slouchy, chunky wool, size 6 needles, a massive winter jumper. So this is the Sing Winter. This is, I made it in a kind of a creamy background, and then used a mixture of a kind of burgundy red and quite a bright pink, which kind of blend in together. into this kind of lovely yoked pattern, which I felt was traditional without being too heavy. And it's got a little bit of yarn detail, colour work detail on the sleeve as well. So I'm really looking forward to wearing this, but it's going to have to be an awful lot colder. Now, I don't know if you can see, but this has got, this is really very fluffy, and it's got these kind of short strands that come out. And I would say it is quite scratchy. I wouldn't necessarily want this next to my skin, but having a long sleeve top on underneath, you're just going to be toasty. Now, I kind of wish I'd slightly gone up a needle size. I think I did it on a 6. I wish I'd done it on a 6.5. I have got incredibly broad shoulders, and I feel that this is just a little bit tight across my shoulders. So I probably either should have gone up a needle size just for the colour work bit, or for the whole pattern. But the pattern is really, really good, and if you can get that kind of I never do a swatch, I never do a gauge, so like basically I think what I'm saying with this is it's my own fault, it doesn't fit right. But I'm really, really pleased with the result, and it's going to be toasty. If I was a skier or a, you know, one of those outdoory adventure people, I feel like I would wear this and have some skis, but I don't. I could wear this to walk down the pub and then get massively overheated in a hot bar. But it's delightful, and if you haven't knitted with Lopi, then it's a really nice experience. Actually, it's very rustic. The Alafos Lopi knits up really fast. If you want to felt things, so I've made a couple of felted slippers out of the Alafos Lopi as well. It felt super well, so don't put it in your washing machine unless you want it to felt. I believe that Isolde stocks it in her shop, but if you do get the chance to go to Iceland, it is the most beautiful country. It is a knitwear strong country, and they have this brilliant hand knitting association shop, which is on the main street in Reykjavik, and you can just go a bit bonkers there. So that is my souvenir knit for this month. This is the Sing Winter jumper by Alicia Plummer in Alafos Lopi, and I'll put the colourways in, but basically it's the cream and natural and a kind of burgundy red and a kind of strong pink. So yeah, that was do you know what the benefit of knitting something this heavy is in a heat wave? It dried in a day, so I properly blocked it. In the past, I've not even bothered blocking my Lopi sweaters because, I mean, it would probably take them about a week to dry. But I actually hung that up. I was trying to kind of give the shoulders a bit more breadth, so I hung it on a hanger and put it outside, and it was drying within 24 hours, which is amazing. I've also been quite busy on the sock front. I can't remember, I think it was the Knitting and Stitching show, maybe last November, but I came across the Collinette stand. Now, Collinette were a yarn producer based in Wales, and I believe they have ceased production. They are still selling their yarns, but they have stopped producing them. So there were a lot of kind of discount buckets, and you could basically just buy it by the weight. But they've got some really good and sturdy sock yarns, and so I've just been using up some of those to make myself more pairs of socks for the winter, because I didn't have very many. So the two I've been knitting up, and for the first time ever I've done kind of contrasting heels, toes and cuffs. I do a very standard cast on 60 on double pointed needles. I'm a double pointed needle knitter. Do a 1x1 rib for a little while, then knit for a little while, and then I do a heel flap and gusset. And so then just changed the yarn when it got to the cuff, the heel and the toe. So I quite like how those have turned out. They feel like they're going to be quite sturdy. Again, the colour's not showing up terribly well, but it's a nice kind of like foresty green with flashes of purple and blue in it. And then the other ones were, again, same kind of thing, contrasting heels, toes and cuffs, although I ran out at this stage, so I had to, I don't know if you can see the difference between those two. This is a very different yarn to what this is. Can't see. Damn it, when it's this sunny and bright, you can't really see a lot. So anyway, I've been busy making socks. Both of them are Collinette, so I would say that I doubt you're probably going to be able to get hold of them. I don't really know what the deal with them is, but it's kind of sad that they've gone out of business because they did have some beautiful yarns. I have done a couple of other cast-ons. I've cast on the Big Weekender, the Weekender. It's a pattern by Andrea Mowry using worsted weight, and I've cast that on, so I will show that to you next time. It hasn't got very far. And then I've got lots of other exciting projects in the pipeline, but those will have to wait until the next episode. I feel like I've probably gone on quite a while, so I'm sorry about that, but lots to chat about, and thank you for bearing with me. And I think that's it for this time. Head on over to the Ravelry page to get involved in that giveaway, and for all the information on Snuggly Stars, go to yarnambassador.com, and you'll find all the details there. Thank you very much. I hope you are enjoying this fabulous warm weather, and see you next time. Bye bye.